Welcome to everybody. Thanks for taking some time out of your Saturday to come spend with me. It's 10 o'clock here in the morning in Seattle. It looks like quite a nice day. And people from all over the world here, so it's different times in different parts of the world. But thanks for joining me, and let's go ahead and get started. As always, there's a disclaimer. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not recommending stocks. Backtesting has limitations, and all trading involves risk. I'm sure you've seen these disclaimers many times. The agenda today is building a template. We looked last week at how to build a last bar values type of template, and we put together something that wasn't very useful, but it showed how to put the template together. And I think we put one column in there for stocks that went above the upper Bollinger Band. So this week I want to build on that. Probably will start from roughly the beginning again, so that if you follow this through, this should be all you need to do to build this template. And this template is going to be really interesting because it not only is going to have columns of values, but it's also going to have a chart involved, which will also update dynamically whenever you run the template. And we're also going to talk about parameterizing a template and what that means. If you're not familiar with that terminology, that's okay. I'll explain as we go along. And once again, this is more of an advanced topic, so if you're new to the program, this might be something that you'd be interested in at a later stage, and you might not want to sort of jump into this right now. Most people at the beginning just run the existing templates, but here's an opportunity to learn how to build your own. As last time, a bunch of links. These are the same links I showed you last time to various help topics on the websites. And this one down here is a shared folder. Make sure you type in this correctly. But if you type this in, you'll go to my shared drive location, and on there I'm going to put a few things from today. And it's a Microsoft OneDrive, so anybody should be able to go to there, and you should see a bunch of files. If you don't recognize what the files are, don't worry. There are some files from a previous sessions I've done, so you don't need to know about those, but I'll tell you the files that are going to be there today. Let me just actually bring those up. One sec. Yeah, so here, you can't see that right now. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so when you go to that link, you'll find a bunch of files there, and the files for today are these files: webinar, template, final, start, and I think there's one called middle. Basically, it's the series we're going to go through. So if you can't quite follow along and get done what we're going to do, you can download any of these templates, and the final one will actually have all of the final information. So that's that. That's the agenda. Now let's close down this PowerPoint. Don't need to save that. And I wanted to recap on something that we did last week. And let me just bring up EdgeRater so everyone should be able to follow along with this. And what I'm going to do is basically select my list of all securities, $1, 250,000 shares. And I'm just going to take a quick review of the week, because I think actually this is a good point to start. So I'm going to go to the hot topics area and look at the in-play stocks, and I'm going to set the time period to be 5 days so we can see what happened last week. And when this is finished running, I'm going to compare that to what we saw at the end of last week. So then we'll have an idea of if things are making appearances in more than 1 week. Okay, so having run that, we now have the list of stocks that have been in play for the last 5 days. The lowest low to highest high is your in play, and then your open to close is the obviously what it says, the open on Monday to the close on Friday. So let me sort by open to close, because that gives you the actual maximum you would have made if you held the stock at the beginning or bought the stock on the open on Monday and sold it at the close on Friday. These are the stocks that made the most in terms of their percentage gain. And what I'll do is I'll just go down through a few of these quickly using a chart that I have has come up on the other screen. But this chart is a multi-chart, so we've got the weekly in the top area, and we've got the daily in the, so weekly in the top area we have now, and daily in the bottom area. And the charts have 50 and 10 period moving averages and volume on, so just to give you a orientation as to what the charts are showing. And then we'll just go through the list so we can see how what's been happening with these stocks. We'll quickly go through the list. I'm not going to make any recommendations, but you can see the kind of moves that these stocks have made. And I have sorted this by open to close, so we know that these are the stocks that were good for last week. The interesting thing is here is that you probably want to compare, are there items in this list that were also in the list I showed you last week? Because you know, it's great to see what stocks have performed last week, but it would be nice to get a heads up the week before, right? So and my idea was that stocks that are moving, this is the idea of the in-play template, that stocks that are moving this week, or have moved this week, it's probably not the first time that they have been moving. So you know, I think that there's some volatility there, and so I'm sort of trying to find out if it's true that I could have found them the week before. So this is an Excel spreadsheet which contains the list that I ran last week. So here's 410, so that was last weekend. This is the list for 417, which is today. And I mean, just take a look at the list here. We've got, at the end of last week we had PSTR, doesn't appear in the top 20 this list, but VLTC appeared last week as number 2. This week it actually appears as number 4. SYRX last week appeared as number 3. This week appears as number 3 as well, with an 83% lowest low to highest high, or a 50% open to close this week. So that's interesting. SYRX, we talked about that. AMCN was number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 last week. This week it is number 2. NVGN was in the list last week, and NVGN is right here in this list. So a lot of the stocks that were appearing last week with their max play, which is the lowest low to highest high, this week are also in the top 10 or 20. So these definitely it's definitely last week picked out candidates that would have been good to trade this week. So that's why I think this in-play template is really useful. Let's take a look at some of these. Let's go through again a little bit closer. So we'll go to AMCN. All right, just wanted to show down here. So here's an example. SYRX. You see that on Friday last week, when we ran that scan last week, this stock was actually down here. So it had made this big move, but it had pulled back to this point. But the template is showing that because it's talking about the lowest low to the highest high. So it picked out for SYRX as it being a number 3 lowest low to highest high, with 100% gain, which was this point down here, excuse me, up to this point up here. But we also know that from open to close it was only a 50% gain. So it had pulled back, but it still made it into this list. And then you can see what actually happened this week is that it completely blasted through this level, and would have made lowest low to highest high 83% this week. So I think by taking a look at the max play, and it's very interesting to see lowest low to highest high and not always focus on what the open to close is, because those are the stocks that have had volatility over that period of time. So anyway, this will be saved for next week. We'll take another look next weekend and see how these stocks have done, and see if these continue to make appearances in the list. but it's definitely these are definitely interesting stocks to pay attention to for next week. Okay, I'll answer a few questions. So, all right. Well, these files are XLSX files. That's an Excel file. I think the problem with one of the problems with Windows these days when you install it is by default it does not show you file extensions, which can be very annoying. So as an example, let me show you down here. I always set my computers up to show me file extensions. So whenever I'm looking at a file in Windows, I always see and whatever the extension is. But by default, when you view files, it just says the name of the file. It might have the icon of the program that opens it, but it doesn't have the extension. You can change that. You can find out in your Windows help how to change that so you see extensions. I think it's worthwhile doing. So that's that, John. All right. No volume. Are you talking about volume on the chart, or there's no volume in this in this webinar? Okay, because there is a volume indicator down here on the chart. Okay. All right. So after last week, and we talked about building a template, I thought I would put together a better example this week, which will have a template which is going to be extremely useful, and it will show you things that we have just looked at, but in a more graphical way. So, for example, I will show you the end result. This is what we're aiming to achieve, and this is the webinar template final. Okay. After we've built this template this week, you will be able to run on any symbol list. I'm going to choose one here. I'll run this on all securities between $1 and above and 250,000 shares. Just hit run on that, and you'll see what we're going to get at the end of this tutorial. If you follow through, this is what you'll end up producing. And let me explain a little bit about what this is showing. Alright, so remember, you can run this on any list, not just the list I've run it on. And if you run this on any list, you can also, after you've got the report produced, you'll also be able to do things like filter and say, let's hit the close price filter, and I just want to see in this chart stocks that are greater than, and it should come up with a dialog box. There we go. Greater than $10 and less than 20. I could have said greater than or equal to, but it doesn't matter. One thing you'll notice is if you change the parameters like that, the chart sizing changes. That's just a kind of a bug with Excel a little bit. But anyway, what I've done now is filtered this list, so we've only got between $10 and $20. Just the reason I did that is just so that instead of having 3,000 odd stocks in this chart, we've only got we've got a lot less, so it's a lot easier to see what's going on and explain what the chart is showing. But it's basically in column 1 here, column E I should say, where it says CP1. This is period. It's the close price for period 1, and you can see that the script that's run here is called ref, which is a refer to close price 10 periods ago. So this is the close price 10 periods ago. CP2 is the close price 5 periods ago, and then close over here is obviously the close price on Friday. So essentially we've got the close price for 10 bars ago, 5 bars ago, and today, or Friday. And then from there we can calculate, and these are just using Excel formulas, we'll talk about that. We'll calculate the percent change between period 1 and period 2, so how much the stock changed between 10 days ago and 5 days ago. And then this column here, column H, is how the percentage change between P2, which is 5 days ago, and today. So you've essentially got 2 periods that you're your testing, and now you've got your percent change numbers in these columns. And if I sort by percent change P1, P2, this is the furthest out, furthest to go. So between 10 days ago and 5 days ago, this is the change in terms of percentage. And the reason I want to sort it is because then this chart will actually sort them as well. The chart changed so that we have the stocks that had the highest percentage change between 10 days ago and 5 days ago on the left-hand side of the chart, and then it goes lower and lower and lower all the way down to the stocks that had the worst percentage loss over that period of time. But then underneath the chart, what you're seeing is how those same stocks performed this week. So from last Friday, not yesterday, but the Friday before, up until last Friday. And the idea here is to get a general feeling as to what happens when stocks have big moves in 1 week. Do they continue to have big moves in the following week? Doesn't have to be a week's period of time. You can put any period of time you like in here, and it's trying to sort of assess whether it's good to be playing in this part of the chart and this part of the chart, or if it's good to be playing in the middle of the chart. But I think that as you experiment with this template and you start choosing different filters in here for close price, or you can filter on any of these columns actually, and you can even add other columns in and filter on that, you'll start to see a trend, which is basically if stocks have been moving in 1 week, they tend to be continuing to move in the subsequent week. And the way that you would sort of see that visually on here is just that the spreads are much wider in these I would say the brown dots, which is last week's performance. Okay, they're much more spread out. As you get into the center of the chart, you see these dots are very compact. Okay, there are a few that have gone to make big percentage gains this week. That's to be expected, but for the most part, they're sort of compressed into the center of the chart. So it's only really towards the ends of the chart where you get this spreading out effect. And so the premise is then that these stocks are the things to be monitoring for the upcoming week. So we're going to build this template, and I think it's going to be a very useful template that you can run. What this also shows is what I tried to show by having my 2 screens up from last week to this week. You wouldn't even need to do 2 separate runs and compare them, because you put the right periods in here for column 2 and column 1, then it's actually going to show side by side what the performance is over those time frames. So let's go ahead and get started with that. That's a little bit of a long intro, but we'll see how far we get. Is everyone with me so far? Let's see. Okay, good. All right, so as I said last week, you would start by going into your EdgeRater folder. So you're looking at EdgeRater, Documents, Edge Club, and what we will do for our templates is we will start by putting them into the root Edge Club folder. And if they're in the root Edge Club folder, they'll appear under your My Templates when you're within the EdgeRater program. So I'm going to start with this start template. You can actually build this without copying the one down from the website. It would be it's fine. And then I'm going to mark it up so that it actually works as a template. All right, so I'll show you how this works. All right, so there are 3 tabs in here. The template info tab is not essential. It's just for information. The values tab is essential to see the data. It doesn't have to be called values. It can be called anything. But anyway, that's where the values get put when the templates run. and then the parameters tab, which defines to EdgeRater how to run this template. Okay, at the moment there are no, if I look in my name manager, you see there are no predefined names here. But remember last week I mentioned that the way that templates figure out what to do is they look at defined names and they try and process those defined names. So what are the names that are important? Well, I made a little PDF file to kind of show what they are. If we go back to the values worksheet, we need to mark this up such that EdgeRater can process it in the right way. And the way that we do that is this little PDF is a little bit of a help. The named range is on the value sheet. Remember last week I said there's EdgeRater. Okay, EdgeRater range is essentially this range here. Just the data. And just the first row of the data. So when the templates run, EdgeRater will take that data range, and for every stock that's in your list, it will repeat it down the rows. Second one, call, symbol call, or if I was to say this properly, it would be symbol call. Okay, you name a range like that, and it refers to the column where you want the symbols to be put. Alright, next one would be date call, the column where you want the dates to be put. Header row, this is the whole row 7 here, and as I said last week, that really identifies so that EdgeRater can sort the columns when you just simply click in the header row. And ERF underscore and then 1. This time I've set it to the to row 4 between columns A and H. And basically these are the formulas that are going to get run when you run a template. So what EdgeRater will do is it will look in all ERF cells and it will say, here there's a blank, I'm not going to do anything. Here it says description, so I'm going to put description in this column. Here it says close, so I'm going to put the close price in this column. Here it says ref bracket C, 10, close bracket, so it's going to run that formula. That is a chart script, which we talked about last week, and it's going to run that, and it's going to put the output of that, the last bar output, into this column here, and the same for ref C, 5, it's going to put it in here. And that is what you need for the values sheet, which is the second area down here. So after you've completed this particular part of the template, you will have these in your name manager: header row, ERF underscore 1, EdgeRater, symbol call, and date call, and they will be referring to, in my example, these are the locations that they're going to refer to. You'll have to do something for the parameters sheet as well. The name, setting name, is not essential. If you don't put a name in, it's just going to use the name of the workbook. The max lookback is also not essential, but if you put it in, it will make your template process faster because it won't have to look through all of the data in your snapshot. A template type is essential. If you don't put last bar values type template in, it's not going to run as a last bar template. And then uses symbol list is also not essential, but if you put uses symbol list in, what happens is when you select the template, the symbol list will be enabled. If you had false for that, then when you selected that template, the symbol list will be grayed out. So it's not essential, and actually that's a source of confusion for some people, so you might want to just keep that as true all the time. And then here's a summary of what I just said. These are the ranges, and these highlighted areas are what you're going to set those ranges to. Okay, symbol column A, data column C, ERF1 is that range there, header row, and EdgeRater. With that simple markup, just that, plus the parameter sheet which says template type is a last bar values template, those two things, the template will run and it will produce for you whatever you have put into your formulas. It will put in the template and do a full template calculation. So that is the goal, to get to that stage. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that fairly quickly, and you can follow along with that with this. Just one sec. this is a tutorial, so yeah, not going to go super fast through this, but anyway, you can replay the video and watch if you miss out on a step. Okay, so the very first range we want to put in here, doesn't really matter what's first, but I like to put in the data range. So I'm going to say that this is ER_data. Okay, that is fixed now. I'll say that this is ER_header row. Alright, so now this row is the header row. Note that I selected the whole row and not just a range of cells here. This is my symbol column, so I'll select that and I'll say ER_symbol_col. This is my date column, so I'm going to say ER_date_col. And then I have formulas, which I haven't actually put in here yet, but I'll name this range row 4 as being my ERF_1. And I believe that's it. We'll find out soon enough when we try and run this template. Go to the parameter sheet, and as I said, the one that's really important here is the template type. So I'll say this is I believe the name for that is ER_template_type. Alright, so just have last bar values in there. I haven't enabled these yet with named ranges, and we've set this up, and I'm going to save this, and this is called webinar template start. Let me save that. Come back into here, and we'll go back to webinar template start, reset, and so will this run? That's the question, and the answer is it's running, but what's it going to do? Alright, so it ran the template, but what you'll immediately see is that it has put and repeated all of the symbols down into the rows down here, which is absolutely correct. There's nothing in description because we did not yet put the scripts in that we wanted to run. The date has been set properly, that's fine. The close price and these other fields right here have actually just been copied down from the default line in the template, and we don't want that to happen, that they're just copied down. We know they're copied down because the test values were 11, 9 and 10, and everything's copied down there. The reason is we haven't put our formulas or scripts in up here yet, so let's just go ahead and do that. Let me just bring that up over here, and so I'm in Excel doing this, remember. My ERF row or range was right here, so I'm going to put description in here. It came out in grey because the formatting for that is on here set to grey. If you don't want it to be grey, you can make it black. Description. Just by changing that, by the way, putting that in there and then rerunning the template. Let's find it's instructional to just do that. Alright, and you see what happened there. I put description in, ran the template, and now description is put into that that field. Alright, let's put that on the side there and put this one over here. Alright, so now we want to populate the close price, so we put close in here. Alright, save that, and all I have to do then is run this template again. Now close price should come in this column here. Okay, so you see it's been updated with close. This one was going to be a reference essentially of close price 10 days ago, and the script that gives you that answer is actually called a reference script because it's referencing something a few days ago, and it's called ref, and then you have to put what you're referencing, which is close price, and then number of bars ago, 10 bars. Let's make that whole row visible so you can see what I'm typing in. Alright, and if I just save that template, hit run over here, Okay, so now this column is updating. So the only column right now that's not updating properly is period 2. So all we have to do for that is put in ref c, 5. So looking for the close price 5 bars ago. Hit save on there. Okay, should have finished. Okay, so now all of the formulas are outputting values, which is good. And also now you'll note column G and H are actually doing the right calculations, because the formula that's in column G is an Excel formula which basically is looking at the close price of period 2 and the close price of period 1 and giving you the percentage change between period 2 and period 1. Alright, same for column H. That is looking at the close price of Friday, so the current close price, and comparing it to the close price of period 2, which is 5 bars ago, and then given the percentage change value between those two periods. Alright, so these two columns are not, we don't need to put a formula, I should say a chart script up here for these columns. They are calculated by Excel based on whatever is in the rows and whatever formula put in there. And you can put any Excel formulas into these cells. So it's very, very flexible. You can do your own calculations in that way. So I'll click save there. I think I didn't really make any changes there, so it's still going to work with this. Alright, what else is instructional here? I haven't marked this one up properly yet. I've said, even though we've got the values in here, I haven't actually, what I would need to do in order to use it would be make a named range from it. So let me do that. And the first one is the name. So that's setting underscore name. If we don't put the name in, as I said before, what it's going to do is, you see the name of the template is actually the name of the Excel file, .xlsx. And that might be fine to leave it like that, but often the names are a little bit weird in templates, and so if you just put underscore setting underscore name here and then save that, then what you'll note is the template has changed to be the text that was in that underneath in that named range, which is webinar template start. That is the text that appeared in here. Okay, I always find it oops, it came up on my other screen, sorry. Okay, just to prove like the dynamic connection here, if I change this to webinar template X and hit save, look at what happens over here when I do that. It changed to webinar template X without you doing anything. So what's happening is every time you save a template, EdgeRater is live reading that file back into EdgeRater, and it's prepared then to run with those new settings. So all you have to do in Excel after you've changed something is save it into the right place, and then EdgeRater will just run it. So that's kind of the process. Okay, so far so good. Can you give me a quick yes, no, or explain more? Okay, great. Looking good. Thanks, guys. All right, not too hard, that step. And of course, you can put any script into any of these columns. That's how, and we talked about that last week. That's how you would design your own template. What we're going to do now is go a little bit more advanced, kick it up a notch, and we'll talk about how you might get a chart in here. Well, you know what? First of all, we'll talk about parameterizing this template. Sorry to change the order on you, but I think we'll do that first. So parameterizing a template would mean what I've done here by typing in ref c, 10 is I've fixed this column to be a 10 period, the close price of 10 periods ago. And I've fixed this column to be the close price of 5 periods ago. So every time I run this template, that's what it's going to give me. But it would be nice if I could parameterize the template so that after I've written the template, then I have an option before I run it to change those periods. And so that's what we're going to do as the next step. So on my template info worksheet, I've got I've already sort of put in here, these are just text cells right now. So it's saying P1 is 10, P2 is 5. They're not linked up to anything. I just put them in here as a kind of getting started. But in order for us to use that for these ref cells, we have to make them, we have to hook them up now. Okay, so how would you go about doing that? Well, what I like to do is name things. It makes things easier to reference if you've given them a name. So this number 10 here, I'm going to give it a name just like we do with other named ranges of ER underscore setting underscore P1. Okay, and I'm going to give this cell a name of ER underscore setting underscore P2. Alright, so now I can refer to those two cells by that name, rather than referring to them by, you know, the essential name in Excel for this would be C27 for this cell, and it would be C28 for the 5. But now I can refer to them as P1 and P2, and also if I move them around, they stay with that name. And I'll go over to the value sheet, and I want to then use those numbers instead of hard coding them in here. So a way that you would do that, a possible way, there are many ways in Excel to do that, but I'm going to actually use the the text building functionality. So it's basically, I'm going to put here that this is equals, that's denotes a formula in Excel, and then I'm going to put ref brackets C, because that part's the same, and then I'm going to add, and that's the notation for adding text in Excel, ER underscore setting, and it's given me the options here because it knows they're there, P1, I'll add that one. Okay, and that's adding another piece of text, close bracket, and we're good to go. So it's outputting ref C10, that's the value you see in the cell, but if you look up in the formula bar, that's the formula it's running to create that value. So it's given us the right value. All we have to make sure is that when we change this value from over here from 10 to 20, and we go back to the value sheet, that it's actually updated that, so it's ref C, 20. So that's correct. We'll do the same with the 5 to parameterize that. So remember, that's just equals, and we'll go ref, oops, I can't type, ref C, comma, and ER setting. And this one's P2, we named it P2, and and then it would be a close bracket. So we've got ref C5, and we'll just check that works. If I change that to be a 15, come back to the value sheet, you see that's changed over here. So that hookup has worked. We'll set that, the defaults of that, to be 10 and 5. I'm just going to hit save on here, come back to EdgeRater and make sure that still works. Okay, refresh. Alright, 10 and 5, let's just run with 10 and 5, and we should get the same values that we saw before. 10 and 5. Now we're going to try something different, and we're going to run with let's run with 50 and 20. Okay, hit run. Right, so now in theory if this has worked, this is giving us the close price of 50 periods ago and the close price of 20 periods ago. So it's always a good idea to verify if that looks roughly correct. And the way that I normally do that is I'll select one, bring up a chart, and just kind of get a rough sort of visual idea about whether that is giving us the right value. So 957 for 50 periods ago. 50 periods ago is roughly, let's see, that's roughly 2 and a bit months. So April, it would be February, early Feb, 957. So yeah, so it looks like it's about, 957 is in this area here. There were no prices as low as 957 recently, so I think that's giving us the actual right the right value there. That's a little imprecise way of doing it, but it's something you can do. I guess a much easier way to test that would be to go and say set P1 to be 2, all right, and set P2 to be 3, and if you run that again, you don't have to count back so many bars. It'll be a lot easier to check. Okay, so now we've got FLWS is 1099. Does that actually look correct? Let's bring up our values panel. The close price was 11.14 there. 10.99, yes it was. For 2 bars ago it was 10.99, and for 3 bars ago was 10.98, and that should be reflected down here, 10.99, 10.98. Okay, so we know this template is doing the right thing, giving us the right values. There's a quick way of testing I like to do. So you've probably got the idea. The way I like to progress with the template is make a small change, run it, make sure it's still working, verify the values are correct, move on to do something else. That way you can gradually build up a template and fix things as you go along. Alright, so the next thing to do then would be add in a chart, and this is where it gets a little bit more interesting, because in our template, which template am I working on now? I'm working on, oh hang on one sec, I think I lost the template I was working on. Yeah, it's this one. Okay, so that's the one we've been modifying. Now, the tricky thing about adding a chart here is we don't have in the template, we don't have all of the data already populated. If you had that, it would be very easy to add a chart in Excel, because you just go and select your complete range, and you select your complete x-axis, your complete y-axis, and it builds the chart automatically for you. It's very easy. But because we don't have all that data, we have to be a bit more clever when it comes to putting a chart in and making sure that it's a dynamic chart which changes dependent on what symbol list you run. You're going to have different amounts of data that appear in the list. So we have to set this up a little bit more in a more interesting way. And the way that we'll do that, let me just make sure I'm going to tell you the right thing here. Yeah, I've experimented with different ways of doing this, and I found that the best way to do it is create another named range. And I'll show you the range that should be in a sec. What I will do is I'll go to my formulas, or should I put the chart in first? Let's put the chart in first. So in Excel you can insert a chart by just saying insert, and it will say, well, here's recommended charts if there are any. There are no recommended charts. You have to select data range first. Let me select P1, P2, say insert a recommended chart, and it will give us a few options for charts in here. Actually, none of those are what I want to insert. I want to insert a line chart, I think would be better. Yep, it is a line chart. Okay, and you can play around with different charts that you might want to use, but the line chart works very well here. Okay, so we've put a line chart in, and you can see it's not, obviously there's no data for it to, there's one row of data here, so it's not doing anything very useful. But what we want to happen is when the spreadsheet is run and produced a report, we want this chart to update with that data. So how do we make the data part of this chart refer to the whole data range? That is the crux of the problem. And the way that you can do it, the way that I found to be the best way to do it, is to put a new name in the name manager. This time you're not going to make it refer to, you're not going to select the cells and type the name. You're actually just going to create name manager, new name, and then say this is going to be called ER underscore series Y1. How about that? And we're going to make it refer to series 1 is going to be E, column E, so it's going to be, and this is just Excel notation, so you can always learn a bit of Excel as you go along here too. E, so column E, but we don't want it to be the whole of column E, we want it to be only the part of column E that intersects with ER data. And the way you specify that in Excel is put a space in and then ER underscore data, like that. Okay, so ER series Y1 is essentially column E intersected with ER data. Let's create another one, name manager, ER series Y2. Alright, ER series Y2, and this is going to be values in row F, column F, intersected with ER data. Alright, and I also want to put a X values in there because I want the stocks to appear, the name of the stock to appear on the horizontal axis. So I'll put ER series X vowels, and I'll make that be column A. You get the picture now. It's like A, column A intersected with, guess what, ER data. Alright, and the reason that works is that when the template is processed and it produces a report, the range ER data is no longer going to be just this one row. It's actually going to be the whole of the data range, and that's why this little trick works. Okay, so now we have to make this chart refer to that new data range rather than hard coding it to be what is currently there. So we go design, and we'll say select data, edit the data, and we are going to go and select, this time give it the name of the workbook, webinar template start.xlsx, and then ER series Y1, and series name is going to be percent P1 to P2. Ta-da! Okay. Then we're going to add another series. So the first series we're plotting on the chart is essentially column E. The next one is going to be percent change P2 to now. Webinar templates start.xlsx, and that will be ER series Y2. Okay, that looked good. So we've got two series plotted on there, and we also will want to put an x-axis, and so that's the final one we have to do. And the range for that is actually, so similar format to what we just did, webinar So if you name your templates with not such a long name, this becomes a bit easier too. .xlsx er series xvals, something like that, I think. Okay, correct. Alright, so we've selected the data source, and we've made, by changing the series to refer to a named range, which is dynamic, then this chart should update dynamically too, in theory. So let's save that and come back to EdgeRater. Alright, reset this template. You see that it's got the chart in here that I added, and now if I run this, we'll see what happens to this chart, if any data is shown at all. Okay, so it's updated. It's getting some data from somewhere. We can sort by different different columns. All right. You see what it's done. It's put on the x-axis. It's put all of the stocks. Now, obviously, it can't fit all 3,000 stocks on the x-axis, so it's just the way that it works. It's just taking every 100, it's going to put one in. But even though it's only put the name in every 100, it's actually plotting the values for every one that's in that list. It doesn't quite look the same as the chart that I had, just because in Excel we would need to set the chart up to have the same format. Anyway, I think we all get the idea about how you can make the charts update dynamically. With what you should end up with is, I say should, I mean this is just an example of doing this particular thing, is you could end up with something like this, which then if you sort, you're able to actually see the extremes and how prices are changing and how the compression happens in the middle of the chart. Really, this is just an example to give you some ideas about different kinds of templates that you can put together on your own, the techniques that you can use to link charts to the data range, the techniques that you can use to parameterize a template. Obviously, you can take this further now on your own, and hopefully I've given you some good ideas for things to do. If anybody has if you put together a template and you think that it would be a useful template for others to know about, you can always send it to me, and I will. And if you're okay with me including it in the for everybody, what I'll do is probably create a new section called maybe user templates, and you could become a little bit famous there because. You put your name in there, and people will be able to see your template. So if you have any that you find interesting that you wouldn't mind sharing, send them along, and I'll publish them in the software. So that pretty much covers what I wanted to talk about. Any questions? Okay. If anybody's has created their own template before. Can you type a Y into the box? Just kind of get an idea for who is creating templates and who's not. Hey, thanks, Bill. Ed, great. Viewer 23. Who are you, Viewer 23? Who is Viewer 23? Who asked that question? We don't know. We will know next time though, because we will be running this on Fuse meeting. Yeah, making your own formulas. So that's the other thing, right? We talked here about just using formulas that were already existing, and I'm using a formula called ref basically to get these columns. I could have used any of the formulas that are in my list of chart scripts. Right, but I used this one here, ref. Could have used any of the others. I could also have created my own. Creating your own formulas is a different topic, and here are some that I've just created recently. But creating your own formulas, it's not that hard, and I think we will take a look at that in another webinar. These are more advanced topics. This isn't really a session for complete beginners. And what I'm going to do, if you have just gotten into EdgeRater in the last month or so, then there's probably a lot more basic things that you need me to cover. And so what I'm going to do is run a beginners series and just go through the very basics from scratch. Ghana, hi. You know, Ghana, you can change your name in if you hover over the participants icon and where it says viewer 23, you can actually hover over that and put it to your name. But no, so it's fine. I mentioned it at the beginning, but not everybody was here. So yeah, there's a way to do it. Just hover over your name and then change it. Hover over viewer 23 and change it to or hover over you and change it to Ghana. It doesn't really matter anyway. So anyway, yes, sometimes you want to have candlestick patterns that I don't have, or any other kind of pattern, or perhaps you've read the latest edition of Technical Analysis of Stocks and Commodities magazine. There's a formula in there that you want to run in EdgeRater, and it's not in EdgeRater. How do you do that? Well, then you create your own formula. And actually, if they normally put in formula for a metastock in Task magazine, and metastock MFL, the metastock formula language, is very, very similar to the chart script language, and in a lot of cases is directly convertible. So that would be a good place to start too. But we'll talk about formulas in another session. I'm not sure if the next session is going to be that, because I really want to cover some more basic things for some of the newbies, but it will be coming up. Okay, well, I think we're done. Thanks a lot for spending some of your Saturday with me, and have a great weekend, and we'll catch up. See you next time.